I'm Iris Tao in for Steve Lance tonight. President Trump confirms an upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin while welcoming the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to the White House for the signing of a peace deal. Joining us now live is NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Tu. Good evening, Mari. What's the latest from the White House tonight?
Good evening, Iris. Yeah, there was a lot of movement and buzz here at the White House today as President Trump welcomed the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to celebrate a peace deal between the two nations. But the question that was really on reporters' minds was about Russia and Ukraine, and the president did just confirm on Truth Social that he's meeting with Russian President Putin next Friday in Alaska. And at the highly anticipated meeting with Putin, the president suggested earlier today there may be swapping of territories between Russia and Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal. Iris?
Meanwhile, Mari, tell us more about the peace deal that was signed at the White House today. Of course, we know that the president is trying to make a lot of peace efforts stepping into his second administration here.
He is. Yeah, and the two countries that have been in conflict for almost 40 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan, this deal actually secures a commitment to stop all fighting between the two nations. Here's President Trump touting the deal that he helped broker. Watch.
For more than 35 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan have fought a bitter conflict that resulted in tremendous suffering for both nations. They suffered gravely for so many years. Many tried to find a resolution, including the European Union. The Russians worked very hard on it, never happened. Sleepy Joe Biden tried, but you know what happened there. He tried for probably 12 minutes and didn't work out. And many other countries tried, and they were unsuccessful. But with this accord, we've finally succeeded in making peace.
Trump also made separate bilateral deals with both nations on energy, technology, and trade. The deal also includes giving the U.S. exclusive access to build a new transit route across southern Armenia. The White House says that this route, which is key to energy resources, will help counter China and Iran, and the route will be named the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity. As Trump says he aspires to bring peace to the world, the Azerbaijani leader suggests that Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Take a look.
Without any result. So who, if not President Trump, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize? I don't want to go into the history of some very strange decisions of the Nobel Peace Committee to award the prize for someone who didn't do anything at all. But President Trump in 6 months did miracle.
This comes just one day after the leader of Cambodia nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for halting the dispute between Cambodia and Thailand. Today's signing also follows other recent successes by President Trump in brokering peace with India and Pakistan and the Congo and Rwanda. Iris, back to you.
Well, definitely we're seeing a string of diplomatic successes right there. Thanks for the update, Mari. And in the Middle East, Israel is now facing criticism as it continues to plan to take over the Gaza City. But Israel's prime minister is now saying that Israel plans not to occupy Gaza, but to, quote, free Gaza from Hamas. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
A military aircraft was seen flying over Gaza City on Friday. Gaza City, which is in the northern Gaza Strip, is largely destroyed due to the war between Israel and Hamas, but many have taken refuge there in tents near the beach. But that could soon change. Late Thursday night, Israel's prime minister's office said that Israeli forces will prepare to take control of Gaza City and at the same time distribute humanitarian assistance to the civilian population outside the combat zones. Also, Israel's security cabinet, by majority vote, adopted 5 principles for ending the war, which are the disarming of Hamas, the return of all the hostages, the living and the deceased, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of an alternative civil administration that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a post on X that Israel does not plan to occupy Gaza, but rather that Israel is going to, quote, free Gaza from Hamas. A resident in Gaza City shared his thoughts on the situation.
Practically all of Gaza has been squeezed into the western part of Gaza City, and that's all that's left. Just that, West Gaza City. At this point, for the people, there's no difference anymore, whether he occupies it or not.
Israel is also facing international criticism over its decision to do a full military takeover of the Gaza Strip. The president of the European Union Commission said on X that Israel's latest decision to expand its operations, quote, must be reconsidered. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, addressed the criticism.
I don't understand why some of these other nations are once again putting all the pressure on Israel and why they're not putting the pressure on Hamas to let the hostages go, all of them, including the ones that are clearly starving. That's what I think we all scratch our heads over.
Meanwhile, in Israel, families of hostages shared their concerns about Israel expanding military operations in Gaza.
What we're saying is that expanding the war would risk so many more hostages that they mustn't do it. My cousin was murdered in Rafah because they decided to expand the war into Rafah. She was there, she was alive, and she was murdered by her captors because the IDF was approaching.
20 hostages are believed to still be alive in the Gaza Strip. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And as Israel approves the plan to take control of Gaza City, what does that mean for the people in Gaza? Joining me now to discuss is Joseph Moreno, legal and national security analyst. Joseph Moreno, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Iris. Good to be with you.
So first on Israel, Israel's security cabinet has now approved a plan to take over Gaza City, though not the entire Gaza Strip. What does it look like in practice for Israel to take over that area, and what will it mean for the Palestinians there?
Well, it's an awful situation. So on the one hand, you have Israel's Defense Force, which is a professional military, which is doing what it can to avoid civilian casualties. On the other side, you have Hamas, which is the de facto ruling government in Palestine, and they are a designated terrorist group that has shown no compunction about hiding within civilian populations, within hospitals and schools. And they, unfortunately, will be the key to basically restore peace in Palestine. And in between these two forces are the Palestinian people. They are victims of a horrible situation. There's hunger, there's suffering there. And so really, the faster this whole situation can get resolved, we get to the most important part, which is to bring back the safety and the health and the peace of the Palestinian people in the West Bank.
And speaking of the conditions of the Palestinians there, with continued attention, of course, on a humanitarian situation in Gaza, will this move potentially enable Israel to better facilitate aid, or would it do the opposite?
You would hope that it will. And Israel has shown, together with the United States and several other allied countries, an interest in bringing food and hospital supplies to the Palestinians. And so hopefully it will continue to do that as it creates a more peaceful situation there. However, whenever you increase a military force, you most likely will increase the level of conflict, and you'll increase suspicion as well, because what initially could look like humanitarian help could instead appear to be an invasion. And so I think that despite their best efforts, most likely the situation will get more violent before it gets less.
Meanwhile, on the war itself, we know that Israel has been saying that its ultimate goal is to fully neutralize Hamas. Is moving into Gaza and really take over Gaza City the only way to fully neutralize Hamas terrorists?
Yes. Hamas has shown no interest in stepping down itself or basically disbanding itself or abandoning the region. And so it seems like the only way to get control over that area will be to destroy Hamas. And it's unfortunate because Hamas is not a traditional uniformed military, right? They don't fly a flag, they don't wear uniforms, they hide within civilian populations, and they're willing to basically die for their jihadist cause. And so Israel is facing a very non-traditional enemy here. And it does seem like the only way to achieve victory for the Palestinian people is to eradicate Hamas.
And like you just said, we have seen such practices by Hamas throughout the past few years of the war. Should Israel potentially have done this sooner to really achieve their goals?
I think there was a reluctance to increase the intensity of the conflict, and invasion never looks good, right? It's always that much easier to rise opposition against what's portrayed as an invading force. And so I think the initial thought was to be more targeted and not look like an invader. But at some point, Israel is understandably justified in saying the only way we're going to get control of this situation is to lock it down.
Well, it certainly remains to be seen how the new stance by Israel will take this war. And now pivoting topics a bit here, the DOJ here at home is moving to convene a grand jury to investigate Obama officials over the 2016 narrative that Russia helped President back then Donald Trump in the election. Where do you see this going, and could anyone face charges?
I don't see it going very far, and it's unlikely anyone will face charges. I understand the Trump administration's desire to shine light on what does appear to have been a complete hoax in terms of the Russia allegations. However, they have to realize that the statute of limitations, or basically the timeline to bring federal charges for most federal crimes, is 5 years. So right off the bat, you're talking about things that happened 9 to 10 years ago, which will make it very difficult to bring charges. I can understand that congressional hearings, which don't have that limitation, they can certainly publicize what they thought was done right or done wrong. But as far as actual federal criminal charges, I'm very skeptical.
And given the limitation when it comes to time and scope, when it comes to bringing charges here that you just mentioned, do you think the nation should still look into this as a whole, including, for example, the people, the media, as well as the federal government? Is it still worth it?
I think that the focus should be on the system. What went right and what went wrong? This was a sharing of law enforcement and intelligence assets that at some point broke down. And while the intelligence community raised certain concerns, the FBI, instead of vetting them and saying there's really nothing here, they ran with it instead. Now, it can be claimed it was out of an abundance of caution. They wanted to kind of get to the bottom of everything, but it did keep the story alive. And again, it turns out there was nothing there. So I think if there's anything to focus on now, it's how the system worked, or in this case, didn't work, and how we can avoid doing that again.
And we're certainly seeing the Trump administration right now prioritizing the situation to root out what they call systematic weaponization. Joseph Moreno, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Iris.
The Texas House fails to reach a quorum again today as the Speaker of the House and others are suing to have the missing Democrats arrested. NDT's Arlene Richards has more.
There being 94 members present, a quorum is not present.
The Texas House failed to make a quorum on Friday. Meanwhile, the missing Democrats are expected to be meeting in California with Governor Gavin Newsom and other Democratic leaders. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other prominent California Democrats are expected to host a press conference with the Texas lawmakers on Friday. Texas Democrats were warned to return to Austin by Friday or face consequences. They fled to Illinois on Sunday to protest Republicans' efforts to change the map of congressional districts. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton gave a stern warning on Tuesday. In a social media post, he said, "I will seek judicial orders declaring that runaway Democrats who failed to appear by the Speaker's deadline have vacated their office." On Thursday, the Texas House of Representatives filed a lawsuit in an Illinois circuit court. The lawsuit was filed by the Texas Office of Attorney General and Illinois State Senator Jill Walker Tracy. It names 33 House Democrats remaining in Illinois as defendants and calls for their arrest. Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows had signed 56 civil arrest warrants on Monday. Since then, 8 Democrats have been present in the House. In other efforts to compel the Democrats to return, Burrows said Thursday that direct deposit would be turned off for the missing lawmakers. Instead, they will be required to collect their monthly paycheck and per diem in person. Former U.S. Representative from Texas Beto O'Rourke told CNN on Wednesday that he was raising funds for Democratic holdouts.
They're trying to stop the consolidation of authoritarian power in America as Trump and Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton and the Republicans in Texas, thick as thieves, try to steal these 5 seats in Texas.
Democrats are believed to be in several states, including New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, and California. At the session, Speaker Burrows announced that a lawsuit had been filed and said he expects more lawsuits to be filed in other states. He called on all Democratic members to be present on Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time for the next session. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
We'll discuss where this is all headed with our panel later in the show. For now, the Justice Department is reportedly demanding a $1 billion settlement from the University of California, Los Angeles. This comes after the Trump administration froze hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for the school's research programs. UCLA is currently under an anti-Semitism investigation by the DOJ. The Trump administration says the university violated a civil rights law and created a hostile environment for Jewish students. Aside from the $1 billion fine, the settlement also calls for a $172 million payment for students who were allegedly impacted by discrimination. In recent months, the Trump administration has targeted a number of universities over anti-Semitism. And breaking news, a suspect is now dead after a shooting at Emory University in Atlanta. A police officer has also been injured. The shooting happened near the entrance of a U.S. CDC office. And a new fire has erupted in the West. The Canyon Fire prompts thousands to evacuate their homes in Southern California, and FEMA has approved a federal grant to assist with firefighting efforts. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Skies are painted orange in parts of Southern California from the Canyon Fire that started Thursday afternoon. California Governor Gavin Newsom said on Friday that the state has secured a federal grant from FEMA. Local, state, and tribal agencies can apply for 75% reimbursement for helping with the fire. The fire started in Ventura County and then spread to Los Angeles County, burning over 5,000 acres. Almost 400 personnel are on a mission to put out the Canyon Fire. It has forced more than 4,300 residents to evacuate the area, in which authorities say the fire poses an immediate threat to life. Another 12,000 are under evacuation warnings. At the same time, the Gifford Fire in Central California has burned almost 100,000 acres and is only 15% contained after burning for a week. These fires come on the second anniversary of the Hawaii fires that devastated the island of Maui in August 2023. The Canyon Fire is 25% contained. David Lamb, NTD News, California.